So you've gotten past the phone interview stage. Congratulations. That's extremely exciting, and now you have the opportunity in an in-person interview to wow the people that you're going to be talking to. So it might be a search committee, it might just be one person, but the next stage of the job application process is often the last stage. You might have more than one in-person interview, but often it can just be one, and that's enough. So what are some things you can do during an in-person interview to really shine as an applicant for a position? Well, there's a couple things, and they build off of the questions that we talked about earlier. They're things like really making it clear that you imagine yourself in the position and you're trying to help the people that you're talking to imagine you in this position. And you're also getting this first take at the personal relationship that you're building with the people that you're talking to. Because they're imagining, what's it going to be like to work with you? Can we imagine being with you day after day in good times and bad times in the organization? How are you going to react? What are you like? And things like your personality, how fun you are, how enjoyable you are to be around, how calm you are you an introvert or extrovert? All this starts to come up in the in-person interactions. So you don't have to feel like you're on stage performing, but you do need to be aware of how you're coming across and be mindful of your interactions. Be yourself and be honest, because if you actually are different than how you're acting during that time, they're all gonna be in for a rude awakening later when they find out who you really are, or you start feeling like, I can't really be myself. So be yourself for sure, but here are some things that you might want to consider doing to really give yourself a huge advantage. The number one thing that I've found is incredibly attractive in applicants that I've worked with. I've helped hire CEOs, I've helped hire VPs for multinational companies, for organizations with up to 8,000 employees. And one of the things that they do incredibly well is not only help you imagine them in the role, but they actually start to talk about what they're going to do in the job. So they might actually bring with them some type of an explanation of what they'd like to do in their first 90 days or their first year on the job, and they can detail it out for you. They've gone way past the job description, and they're actually imagining being in the job now. So this is an interesting part of the job application process. Often hiring managers or HR is in charge of the hiring. They don't often know, and even the supervisors of positions don't often know exactly what needs to be done in that position. So often, a lot of times people are hired that might not be the perfect fit, and they find out months later when they actually figure out what they should be doing in the job, and they have performance reviews and outcomes they're trying to measure against, and that's when they find out they're not a great fit, or the company finds out they're not a great fit, and that's a difficult situation. So what you're trying to do is help the company really make a great choice based on what you're going to actually do in the role. Not who they think you are, or your education, or your background and experience, but actually how are you going to do in this role. So if you can give them information to help you explain how you'll actually be in this role, that's going to be huge for you and huge for them. So here's a way to do that. Instead of just coming in and talking a lot, actually do a lot of research and preparation ahead of your in-person interview. Bring with you a packet, and let's say it's about 12 pages long. Think of it like a PowerPoint presentation, not text heavy, but outcomes heavy, images to make it look great. It's awesome. But you can actually physically bring it, go to Staples, print out a couple copies of it. And here's the kind of things you want to include on it. A title page with the description of the position, or the title of the description and the title of the organization, maybe the logo of the organization. That'd be awesome. The next page is a table of contents for what's inside the packet. The third page is a little bit about you. So who are you? What are you passionate about? Maybe a picture of you so they can remember you when you leave, and they look at the picture and they go, oh yeah, that's the person that we were talking with. So on that third page, talk a little bit about your background, but again, bullet points. Don't write anything in sentences or paragraphs. Say, former Peace Corps volunteer, or former project manager, whatever it is, and detail those things that you've done. It's not your resume. It's not like dates and stuff, but just the highlights of what you're passionate about and who you are. So that's the third page. The fourth page is the basics of the description of the job itself, as you know it. So let's say there's 5 bullet points on what the position is. Let's say it's a project manager position. From what you understand, it has these 5 elements. And again, you're bullet pointing, not sentences, not paragraphs. And you're saying the major things that you're going to be doing in that role. again, you're trying to gauge this from the job description, from the description of the website of the organization itself, and what you've gathered from the first interview, the phone interview, ideally, and other people you've talked to in the organization. Now, the rest of the presentation from, I guess, what's this, page 5 onward, is actually the details of what you'd like to do in the position. So you can build off of these 5 bullet points that you've had of the position, but now get into it. Let's say one of the roles, of the bullets is create partnerships with other organizations. Okay, well, how exactly would you do that? Spend a page on page 5 or 6 now bullet pointing out what you'd like to focus on. So these are things like outcomes, things you can measure, and the ways that you're going to know you're successful. So maybe it's tending to the current partnerships is an element of what you'd like to do. And you can gather that from their website. Who are their current partners? Who is this organization already working really well with, or their core clients, right? So you'd have a couple of those, and you'd say build new partnerships. Maybe you'd even start to put logos and detail out, oh, these are the kind of partnerships I'd like to work on in my first 90 days and then in my first year. Maybe some are real big fish, like ones that'll be tough to get but would be incredible, and some are more manageable. They might already be ones that you think the organization is already trying to build partnerships with, right? So that's an example of what you'd have on that page for explaining that bullet of, let's say, partnerships. But let's say another bullet is improving the organization from within. Okay, so what would that look like? Well, maybe it would be that you're teaching the staff, you're providing free workshops or trainings, or you yourself are going to trainings, that you're pursuing opportunities for the organization to grow and improve in ways that you know it's been wanting to grow and improve. So again, outcomes and details, things that you can actually measure. Maybe you'd go to a Franklin Covey training to become better as a leader. Maybe you'd approach Harvard Extension Business School and go to a one weekend class to learn these skills. Or maybe you'd take an online class for free and these certain things that people want to learn in the organization, and that you teach it to the other people in the organization. There's also an element of kind of market research. So you're going to want to spend some time, especially in your first month, but maybe even your first 3 months, talking to a lot of people and learning a lot about what's currently going on. Maybe the strengths that the organization currently has, opportunities that it has. You could look at it as like creating a SWOT analysis for the position or the department. That could be another entire page detailing out the research, the listening tour that you'd like to do. That could be really great too. But the point is that in these actual detailed pages that make up pages 5 to 10 or so, you're really laying out your action plan for how you'd like to be in the job. You've already imagined yourself in the job. Instead of just showing up on day one and going, okay, great, what do I do? You actually already know what you're planning on doing. And instead of your boss having to tell you, okay, we'll do this and this and this, your boss looks at your action plan and tweaks it and goes, this action plan's awesome. You obviously already know what you're trying to do. You're going to walk right in and do some amazing stuff with us. Let me go ahead and tweak a little bit of this. Maybe these partnerships aren't quite in prioritized order. Let's work on these ones first. Or this idea of expanding inside the organization and helping us grow as a team is awesome. Let's look at email first before project management. Or let's look at interpersonal dynamics. And so they would give you some actual feedback on the priorities and the projects themselves, which could be incredible. I mean, as a supervisor, as a boss, it's ideal for you to not be in the micromanagement. I mean, a lot of bosses want to be working with people who are just totally getting it. They know what they're trying to do, and their job as a boss is to help remove barriers and help you do your job. They don't want to be micromanaging you and telling you exactly what you've got to be doing. So if you can demonstrate to them that you get it, you know what you need to be doing, and you're excited to jump right in, and that you're humble and good at listening, that you are totally open to adapting this plan, but that you know what you'd like to jump in and try to do. I'm telling you, that is very rare to find. There are very few people that spend the time before going into a job to understand the job, plan out some type of action plan, and then bring that presentation with them. And you're doing some other things at the same time. You're demonstrating your tenacity, your ability to jump into things, your confidence, your ability to research and pull together information even without the best information. You're doing a lot of this based on the website, based on conversations, your first interview. You haven't even been in the organization yet, so they're going to give you a lot of slack for if you make any mistakes at all. That'll be totally fine. And that you say, even when you're presenting it, this is my best guess at what I'd like to do. I'm totally open to adapting this and changing it over time. The other thing is these little touches of how well it's designed, how clean it is, how well you're able to make things concise and simple. That stuff's huge. I mean, a lot of times it's not in the job description, but people want to work with others who can write really good, concise emails, are good at respecting people's time, make things look pretty, make them look awesome, have a nice sense of design. You might even be asked to do some marketing or design flyers or put things out there for programs. So if you can do that in this little packet that you're developing, then they are feeling confident, I'm sure, that you'll be able to do it later in the actual job. So by the end of this preparation period, you have a little packet that you feel good about. Again, it has who you are, why you're a great fit, and why this is a passionate, job for you, maybe even a dream job for you. So that little bit about you. The position itself, what you've described in bullet points that kind of summarize what the job description looks like and what the organization looks like. And then the third section is kind of getting into the details of what exactly would you like to do in this role and how are you going to measure your own success? What even would be the ways that you want to come back and measure your own performance? And say, I'd like to develop this many partnerships by this time, or I'd like to do these things for us as a team by these dates. And I'd like to have check-ins with the whole team or with my boss at these different points. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, at this point, you're demonstrating the self-management, that you know how to manage up even, this idea that you can help your boss do an even better job, and you're making your boss look great. That's your job. That's what you're trying to do. Not in a suck-up kind of way, but in I'm going to do my job great, I'm going to make you look great, and then you're probably going to get a promotion because our whole department, our whole team is doing awesome. That's great. I mean, everybody wants to do better as an organization, and you're coming in to solve a problem. Remember we covered that earlier? You're being brought in to solve an issue or a couple issues, and so they're trusting you that you're going to come in and actually make their lives easier. So even in this packet, you're making their lives easier. The job search process is tough. And if you are doing all these things, it's helping them as a search committee have an even easier time saying, look, she or he answered all of our questions. Like they know what our concerns might be. They've already addressed them. One last thing that you might want to do is think about any arguments they might have and then address them. So say, here's why I think I'm a great fit for this job. Here's why I think you might be nervous about hiring me. Let me be self-aware enough to address the concerns you might have. Don't detail them out with the negatives. For instance, they might say lack of experience or geographical location or age, something like that. Well, instead of saying lack of experience, you can say something like, I'm excited to be jumping into a job and dedicating myself to it, committing to it over the next several years. I know that I need to be developing these skills. I'm excited to jump in and do that. You've addressed the fact that you have a lack of experience, but you've talked about the positive side of it. Or geographical location. Well, they're often looking at people from either moving to a new area or using their current geographical location to be an asset to the company if they're allowing for remote work or something. So address the fact that geographically, here are the advantages that you bring. Here are the things that you'd like to help them achieve, the strengths that you bring. But also you can look at the negative side and say, I understand that we need to be, let's say, very mobile and able to serve our client base in this region. I'm excited to do that. And here's my plan on how I'd like to do that. I'd like to have these trips at these times to do that. So you're addressing their concerns. You're also letting them see opportunities that they might not have really detailed out yet, but you and the rest of that packet can be explaining that. So address concerns they might have in a way that feels good to you, and also build on your own strengths and then address them in that later parts of the packet. And then at the end of the packet, obviously thank them. Say thank you for their time and consideration. If you know the names of the people that were interviewing you, you can thank them directly. But also you want to make it clear that you understand that the job application process is often a win-lose proposition. There's only one person that gets it and a lot of people who don't. And if you actually want to be involved in the organization moving forward, put that out there. Sometimes there are job opportunities you don't know about. Sometimes there are opportunities for people to create jobs. And if they want to, if they like you enough, they might create a job just for you. I've seen that happen. I've actually had that happen for me. So if you build that trust and you're sincerely interested in the organization and these people, they'll appreciate that. And they might not be able to give you this particular job, but they'll be able to respond when they do have an opportunity and be there for you. The other element to remember is you can only be the best that you can be. What are you going to do if someone comes along with way more experience, the perfect skill set, the perfect whatever? I mean, you can't try to knock them out or outcompete them. You're trying to be the best that you can be and be really prepared, really clear about who you are and why you're a great fit. But you can't control who else applies. And I think that's an important thing for all of us to remember and appreciate, because otherwise we could get disappointed. And it's not really, at the end of the day, our decision. So good luck, and I hope it goes really well for you. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to address concerns or questions. I know it's a big process. There's a lot to consider, but having this packet with you can be a huge advantage, and I hope that you can do that on your next in-person interview. Good luck. Talk to you soon.